Hello, so today we are going to look at the Opuntia cactus or Nopal and fruit, the tuna. My name is Christof and I am here in the Center for Agroecology's farm garden, actually right on the edge of the Black Lives Matter garden, of which this plant is an important member of that garden. And today, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Nopal, which is a word that name comes from the Nawa language, the Aztec language, and it describes the pad itself, this edible portion. This is a very, very multiple use plant that originates in Mexico. In Mexico, there are over 100 different species of Opuntia or nopals, most of which, not all, but the vast majority of which have edible properties, medicinal properties, and one other significant use that I'll talk about too. The three main things that people focus on is the edible pads here, which are most commonly harvested, best quality, early in the season when it is younger, more tender growth. As they get older, even this most recent growth, this season's growth, it tends to get a bit more fibrous. The skin tends to get a little bit thicker, but they can still be harvested and eaten anytime. They just require a little bit more processing. When these are harvested, they can either be broken off or carefully sliced off, and they'll come off pretty clean. And then depending on your technique, you might take a small knife and incision and cut out each of these spiny eyes. Sometimes people, especially with older pads, would almost take like a vegetable peeler and then just shave the whole thing. In Mexico, you would see these either as whole pads or the cut pieces at market very, very commonly, because it is a food crop that can be eaten in many, many different ways. It's cooked as a breakfast food with eggs. It's made as a vegetarian tacos. It is also cooked sometimes and served side by side with meat. And then very often they will be their own side dish as well. One of the reasons that we have this particular one planted here, and you can probably tell by the way that I'm handling it, it has relatively few spines on the nopal itself, making it a little bit easier to process. Another possible thing that we don't have here, but that I wanted to point out, is there is a species of aphid that often colonizes the Opuntia and feeds on the tissue, feeds on the flesh of the Opuntia, and in doing so, they actually make a red dye, a really, really beautiful, deep red dye referred to as cochineal. And cochineal is basically a byproduct of those aphids feeding on the nopal. And this is something that has been regularly used in textile work in Mexico for thousands of years. When the Spanish conquistadors came along, they recognized this value and, as with many things, really tried to dominate and monopolize the market and enforced servitude labor to actually be able to maximize the production of the cochineal, this red dye. The last thing I want to show you on these, and we're also going to go look at a couple of other plants, because this fruit here, this was the flower, this is now essentially the seed pod. This fruit is very, very edible and delectable, can be eaten as a fresh fruit, can also be made into jams or jellies and into a syrup as well. And there's a variety of ways to harvest it. The main thing to know is that let me start with this one down here. The fruit itself is very, very sweet, but it has every one of these is a cluster of very, very tiny little spines referred to as glucnids. And those things, if you get those in your finger, it is not going to be pretty. They really stick around for a long time. The simplest thing for fresh eating is you slice the top off, and then you can take a spoon and get right in there and eat the fruit. The fruit itself, depending on the variety, the flesh could be whitish, could be yellowish, could be orangish, or very, very bright red. I feel like it sort of has a cantaloupe to watermelon-like flavor, depending upon depending on the variety. Most people, you'll see there's these small dark little seeds in there. Most people just go ahead and eat the seeds, and gets you a little more fiber in your diet. If you were making a jam or a jelly, then ultimately you would strain that out. But really simple and easy to harvest. The main thing is just having to be really, really careful in your harvesting process so that you're not getting caught by all of the spines there. But so what we would typically do is have a bucket and then grab and cut, like so. A lot of times they will just snap right off if they're really ripe, but we'll just grab and cut a few off of here. Typically, the darker the color, regardless of the color spectrum, the better the fruit will be. So yeah, that's the basics of harvesting. Pliers or really thick leather gloves, a lot of care and attention that you don't let the fruit rub against your skin. Absolutely, if you get the little Glock nodes or baby spines on your fingers, that you're not touching your face and your eyes and so forth. And then when you are working on processing them, you'll see more of this with Brooks in the kitchen, but ultimately it's the same thing. It's a matter of holding and stripping away that outer skin until you get to the flesh on the interior. And then it can be processed in a variety of ways for delicious outcomes.